It's the 17th of July 2014. We'll talk a little bit more about these Georgia Guidestones, but we'll get straight into it. Does anyone know what the hell is going on right now in this world with regards to the nature, in the way in which, the climate is going, and with regards to human behaviour? I'm pretty sure we've all seen what's been taking place over the Middle East with Gaza and Israel, and also with the Ukraine. And then on top of that, we've got what is taking place with the BRICS nations building up a super bank to take on Western banking and economies. But this is it. Everything at the moment just seems like a swirly, murky water. I've even tried to get some more data off the European Space Agency with regards to its swarm mission, and the data that I was trying to obtain off them was relationship to the swarm mission, and I was hoping that they might release a little bit of information or data on that so that we could keep track with it. But I've not heard nothing from the department for the last 2 weeks. Maybe I should try addressing a few of the letters from a few different angles, see if we can get in there to the right people, because I'm pretty sure what's happened in this respect is that someone's seen this and thought, we don't usually outsource data when they don't quite clearly like other departments such as NASA. They don't freely have websites where you can obtain it on a regular basis, updated present time data. But there you go. I mean, yeah, what a world, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better, and I'm not sure what to make of any of it. I mean, I'm not sure whether Russia and these other BRICS nations are in on it all, and this is all a big game with the West, and this is indeed how these New World Order elitists function. When they have their meetings at the Bilderberg meetings, I'm pretty sure that they discuss which part of this world is going to become profitable and which is not. And I don't think we could see any improvements in the near future with Europe and United States. So maybe this BRICS nation has been a development by the elitist to shift money in favour of devaluing one. Remember, I always say it's like a balance. If you want to make money, you at least need two players. One, you can, good guy, bad guy, you can weaken the economy at one side of the world whilst making money out of doing that, and you can strengthen the other side whilst making money out of that as well, and then you can tip the scales so that the opposite happens, but you still make money no matter which way you play it. And that's why I'm not convinced that this BRICS nation global banking system that's been developed by the BRICS nations is not something that's already been planned, because I can't see President Putin not showing some kind of human behaviour with regards to what the West is doing, and I'm talking about directly what the United States is doing. They're imposing sanctions, and I said this is like two kids in a playground, where they get pushed and they start pushing and shoving, and it's not long before one of them throws a fist. Well, I'm surprised that President Putin hasn't been the one that's threw the fist, and I'm pretty sure the first place he would have threw a punch would have been in the eastern side of the Ukraine right now, because he does have an excuse, if you ask me, to retaliate to that bomb that went over the border into Russia and killed a Russian civilian. But he did say that there would be consequences, severe consequences for those actions taken. But, it's a sad world, guys, is all I can say. And the reason for doing this video is to just quite clearly point out one thing, one important thing, and that is nothing is improving. This, day by day, is getting worse and worse. And I'll just come straight to the point with one example. In the Gaza Strip yesterday, there were 4 children playing football. Perhaps they've been just watching the World Cup, and they've been pretending to be one of those players, and they was on a beach, and a bomb landed on the beach and completely busted these children's bodies up almost beyond recognition. I could not believe it when I seen slumped on the beach these 10-year-old children, one of them was 9 I believe, in such a manner. And I give it thought, as you probably do. If you're a parent in a conflict zone such as Gaza, and it's under attack by a highly technological, well-oiled war machine such as Israel, and they are, bombing a lot of the buildings, then you'd probably do what them parents done. It's very difficult to keep kids in, for their own safety, and is it even safe to keep your kids in when these buildings that are being targeted are civilian buildings? So you probably would have done what them parents did and said, stay on the beach, because that's probably the safest place there. There is no building, so the likelihood of it being attacked is very slim. However, it was attacked, a beach, and in this incident children were killed that were playing. And that was targeted from an Israeli ship, probably out in the Mediterranean somewhere. Now, I don't think that was any mistake at all, because, like I said, it's a technological, advanced war machine that Israel have, and it's not, a poor guessing whoever fired those rounds from that ship. What I'm saying is, it must have been targeted, because why it was targeted is beyond my reasoning. I can't even figure why you would target a beach. But the main thing here is, guys, is these were children that lost their lives, and I've got a 9-year-old son, and like I say, I'd have probably done the same thing, and I would have hoped that would have been the safest thing for me to do, would be send the kids down to probably get a little bit of relief from what is taking place further on in the city, and you'd expect your children to come back from that, even in a war zone, and this was not the case. So I don't know what is actually going on with the logical reasoning behind these wars that are taking place. The Ukraine is a civil war. They're fighting their own people, and you see civilians lying in the road dead. And there are civilians likewise in Gaza being killed. And there is no justification for such atrocities in my accounts. You can't explain that and justify those actions. And it isn't getting any better. It isn't getting any better for those 2 conflict zones, and likewise what's taking place out in Iraq. There is no improvement there either, with ISIS. And I've got a question, there, what happened, why, or even if the Iraqi soldiers did ask the Americans to come back and help them before it was too late, before ISIS had took so much ground as what it did, why didn't they respond a lot quicker to the situation? And why haven't the Americans secured their own equipment in these conflict zones to stop situations like this getting out of hand, where sophisticated howitzers that are GPS or navigated equipment that can be programmed to accurately drop a bomb 20 miles away, how do these pieces of equipment, as well as the thousands of Humvees, that armoured Humvees and guns and other sorts of equipment. How come they've not took responsibility in trying to stop these weapons falling into other people's hands so that this sort of thing could be avoided? What the hell is going on? They have a responsibility to the taxpayer not to leave these pieces of equipment out there because of the costs involved in these pieces of equipment. They have a duty to angle the taxpayers' assets in a much better way in which they have done, and I believe they did so out in Afghanistan as well. If you take this military hardware to a conflict zone and you justify its necessity, then you also owe it to the taxpayers that have paid for that equipment to return it back to the states, and at least make sure that it doesn't fall into other people's hands where this sort of thing doesn't happen. But there's a lack of responsibility across all ranges there. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about what is taking place in Gaza, but I think it should not be happening in this day and age. But we're seeing this not just in Gaza, not just in war zones. We're seeing this same mentality play out in virtually every country, and I'm just wondering how much and how far can we go with this present mentality, without ourselves to worry about, and worrying about us getting into conflict and arguments and wars with other countries and ourselves, civil wars. You'd think with just with what nature and how nature poses a threat with us, and I'm not just talking about the severe climate changes that we've been following, that isn't on its own a problem, but we also have the outside threat of meteorite comets coming into the atmosphere, and we also have the threat of changing planets and our own stars' behaviour changing. I mean, I've showed you the graphs, guys. You've seen the declining graph. It's a gradient that hasn't changed its pattern or trend, and sure enough, it fits the the research that we've looked into, that these things are certainly most likely to happen with regards to sunspots, them dwindling out at some point mid next year, and it being less likely for them to form because of the surface increase in temperature on the sun's surface. But you've just got to ask yourself one thing, like I do, and I find it, well, what do I talk about today? Because I've actually seen quite a lot myself, and to some of you guys, it seems like I'm all over the place with what I'm talking about, but it's not just pole shift that we do on this channel. I've said that before. We look into alternative energies, we look at human behaviour on a whole, we try and get an angle as to what are our threats. It's like we're doing a risk assessment, and this is why I say it's well worth being prepared, because right now anything could happen. If Russia is not in on this with the elites, which I think it is, because like I said, I think if it had been any other way, I couldn't have seen Russia being sanctioned the way they are, and taking it as well as they have, without some form of retaliation. They are a superpower at the end of the day, and that's why I say that. But if they are not part of this agenda or global plan by the elite, then we're already in a Cold War. Putin visited Castro the other day, wiped off a load of money for them. He's again building allies. He's went to Argentina, Brazil. He's very close with the Chinese, the Iranians, and all the others that we have sanctioned in some other way or form. You don't even know whether it's the right thing to do to reside in the Western countries, or try and find yourself somewhere else in this world that is not so populated, that cannot be classed as a military necessity, or advantage point, that even if in the future, and you are residing, you've moved home to one of these places where you think safe, will it be safe in the future? It's not a very nice time, and this must be some of the things that you guys are thinking about. As for the majority of the people, what they're thinking about is completely different. They're not too concerned with what's going on in Gaza, the Ukraine, Afghanistan, Iraq, or what these world elitists are up to. They're not interested in any of that. They're interested in their own self security, and that's I think is a very sad thing. It's very selfish for you to just be concerned with your own things when the world is in such a mess, and your only concern is for yourselves. There is a multitude of people out there right now that are thinking those ways. They don't watch the news. They're not interested in what goes on outside of their little bubble, and they're not bothered about it. And I think if there was more awareness and more concern for the likes of those 4 children that were murdered on the beach yesterday playing football in that Gaza Strip, then I'm pretty sure that this sort of behaviour would be frowned upon and not accepted in any form of manner. Like I say, I think I've got to myself that I'm very lucky. I've got a 9-year-old son, and I can't, think of anything other than what I would have done in the same situation, other than send the children to somewhere where there was no, or you would have thought, no chance of any harm coming to them. It was a tragedy. It was a monstrosity what happened there. Makes you sick and ashamed to be human sometimes when you see what sort of things we're capable of. There will never be anything resolved if bombs and missiles and bullets fly. Never. Because in order to switch off a war, you need to negotiate. So you might as well get straight to that point now. Start negotiating. There must be other alternatives for those in those Palestinians in Gaza. You probably wouldn't agree with this, but I'm just thinking out the box here. What about compensating them people with somewhere else to live? Because I'm just thinking, if 2 children cannot get on and they're fighting all the time, well, the teacher will at some point separate them. Is there somewhere we could relocate the Palestinians, give them their own country, and let them get on? If we cannot do it, what I'm talking about, if we can't do it there, or relocate Israel. I know it sounds ludicrous, but I'm just thinking, if we can't, if they can't get on, if there's no physical way they can get on, then should they be right next to each other for this to continue for years and years and years? Isn't there another option that would be acceptable for everyone? Because I'm sure people would rather live without the threat of being blown to bits than live with the threat of that. You might think it's ludicrous. I'm just saying, look, what are all the possibilities for this situation out there? And the same for the Ukraine. Can't peace be, the way forward and negotiation as opposed to bullets and bombs? Because inevitably, someone's got to sit down and negotiate. Otherwise, more civilians will turn up dead. Is this what they want? Is this what they want to see? Because it's these elitists that built this structure. If that's not the case, that very likely want to see more civilians lying dead in the street. And what sort of people are they if that is what they want to see? I'd be interested in your views, guys. I won't keep you any longer. Try and enjoy the rest of your day. And I always say this: is it not a good idea to be prepared when all this is going on in the world? And this is just human problems. What about the problems that nature poses equally? Is it not worth being prepared? And if you've got no preparations, then seriously consider all your options should you ever find yourself in a situation that has been caused by humans themselves or nature itself. Like I always say, guys, be prepared, and as always, bye for now.